Hello, it's Phillip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. Today I'm looking at a book from our old friend Richard Susskind. It's a first-class book, Online Courts and the Future of Justice. There it is in the hardback version. From Oxford University Press, and it's very much Richard Susskind again, putting forward some very interesting propositions in what I think is an eminently readable book. Now, I've given it a title, A Stimulating Debate which is Fashioning Change as Online Courts Emerge in the 2020s. Whatever that means, because people, I think, have a different view about courts, online courts, depending on who you speak to. Some people are talking about online courts as courts concerning just the control and the use of data on various platforms, and then you've got another group of people who think online courts are where I'm going to be talking to someone in another room on a telephone or a television link, televisual link, whatever it might be, Skype, whatever, and a judge somewhere else is going to make the decisions. Now, I don't know what is really going to happen, but I think this book is trying to balance what we think we know about what online courts are going to be, post, say, things like the money claims online system, and the future of justice, because clearly the rule of law has to be maintained throughout, and there are big problems with online courts. If you think about the idea of having one set of parties in one room with a television link, or whatever type of link it is, and other parties in another room somewhere else, either in this country or abroad, because you don't know what they're looking at, you don't know who else is in the room, you don't know who's prompting people, and it's not the same as having everybody in a live courtroom as live witnesses. It's different. Now that means that there will be abuses. There will be people twisting the system. It's already twisted sufficiently by many people concerning things like the White Book and how big it's growing. You've got all of this stuff coming in, and we've got to look at it. So what does Richard say? Well, let's look at the book first of all. There it is. Interesting cover. It's hardback, this one. There we go. There is the spine. Now, I don't know whether you can see very much of that, but there's a little bit there. The white on yellow is not easy to make out, I hasten to add, but they do these things, these art people, and that's the way it is. There, again, there's a nice picture of Richard. There we go. Professor Richard Susskind, OBE. Right, there is some blurb on the front inside dust cover, and I've borrowed a little bit of quotes from that. You've also got a nice index. There we go, by page numbering. As I said, I thought it was like, as with most of Richard's stuff, it's very easy to read. I didn't find it difficult to read. It wasn't like a proposition from Wittgenstein or something. It was really quite easy. There, that says how the index works. Then you've got a nice little, he calls it further reading, it's a bibliography. If we go to the front, we've then got a bit of blurb. There we go. We've got quotes. He's got a nice lot of quotes from all his mates have put in lots of good quotes. They're very senior people. I don't mean it in any rude way, but it's extremely useful to have these this praise for the book. And in fact goes over the page. There we go. Then you've got the front page there. Then we go to the front page again, as is usual. Then we have the blurb from OUP. And I'm going to show this. There we go. I'm going to mention Rosa again in a minute, because I'm going to say another thing. Dedication is very important. A lot of people involved in these books. We don't review books which we think are rubbish. This is not rubbish. It's a very good book. I will not bother reviewing a work that I don't really like, because there's no point. The people who've written it have put a hell of a lot of work into it, and I don't want to destroy them. It's not like a film where you can be rude and sarcastic. There's simply no point. It's much better for me to say, this is why I like this book. This is what benefits it will give you as the practitioner or the researcher, rather than being acerbic about it. There are acknowledgements there, a lot of people involved again. And it's, as I say, very easy to read this all the way through. Then, and that's from, obviously, from earlier in last year. Then there's some various other little quotes. And then you've got the contents section, various parts. Part 1 is on courts and justice. Part 2, is court a service or a place? Part 3, the case against. Part 4, the future. Then an introduction, well worth reading. And he's talking about his granddaughter. More of her in a minute. There's the introduction, runs through a bit, then we get to part 1, Courts and Justice, Why Courts Matter. And as I say, it's a good book. Read it on a plane if you're going off somewhere, destroying the carbon footprint or whatever it is they're claiming. At the end of the day, we've all got things to do, and it's a book that actually on a train journey or a journey of any sort is quite an easy book to flip through. So what do I say about it? I wrote this review, and I, on the basis of having seen press coverage, obviously I've met Richard in the past and I've reviewed other books. So this is what we're saying. Elizabeth and I did talk about the book, and I decided I would do this review. So we say this: Professor Richard Susskind never fails to surprise us with his excellent new assessment on the future of legal services as we enter the 2020s. As much of a personal approach to the thorny and controversial subject of what are called online courts, which can be different things to different professionals. One thing, however, is sure: change is on the way, as the current systems we use to process justice have to face technological change, whether we like it or not. And I have to say, as an older practicing junior barrister, I'm delighted to see the new people coming along, because they all have the computers now in courts, and we're all looking at it in a different way. And I go back, of course, to the days when there was a row about whether we should use fax. I was certainly not allowed to take a computer into court. As for mobile phones, no way at all. All of that's gone. You've got younger people on the bench who are much more switched on, and the whole system is changing to reflect a much more modern approach as oldies like me get older and older and older. The fact is that we have the change, and we've got to recognise it. That's why the future of justice is so important, because, with great respect to everybody, we've got to maintain the standards. Because if we don't, we can then go down the slippery slope very quickly to an abuse of the rule of law and a lack of what is, I think, probably the highest standard of courts work in the world, here in England and Wales, with the greatest system the world's ever seen, the common law. Now, online courts and the future of justice is another in quite a long line of books from Susskind about what the future holds. That's really, in this case, for his granddaughter, amongst others, Rosa. Now, OUP are to be congratulated, we think, in publishing these texts at a time of change when we just don't know which possible direction we will end up going in, locally or globally, with the new technologies as they come in. And I do think, again, it depends very much on your point of view and that of those who decide these things right at the top, the elite, the people at the top who are going to make the decisions. What sort of thing the online court will be, what sort of activity it will actually deal with. Will it just be data holding and using artificial intelligence in a different way, or is it going to be the whole hog of actually having a court being televised across the world effectively, which is probably where we're going to get to eventually over a very long period of time, as long as safeguards are in place. Now, our court system is struggling, says the author. It's too costly to deliver justice for all but the few, too slow to satisfy those who can access it, yet the values implicit in disputes being resolved in person and in public are fundamental to how we have imagined the fair resolution of disputes for centuries. And that is the dilemma in a nutshell. Inevitably, the question is raised, could justice be delivered online? Yes and no. Susskind remarks that this idea has excited and appalled in equal measure, promising to bring justice to all, threatening to strike at the heart of what we mean by justice. And those are just some of the politer views, as lawyers do not like change. That's coming from me, not from Richard. Now, I'm saying this, and he's saying this, because we have to face change right at the moment. It's not something we can put off again, because there's been all this putting off, like Richard Branson setting his rocket into space. You know, the years roll by and nothing happens. The thing is, we are now at a situation where the crunch with online courts is upon us, and we're going to need to have proper thinking and a proper development of where we're going from here. So with online courts moving from idea to reality, the government and the public alike are facing one of the most fundamental changes to our justice system seen for centuries, certainly since the Judicature Acts 1873-75, which actually eventually, after a few tinkerings in the mid-Victorian era, finally decided it was time to create something modern. That's a long time ago now, and we've got to do things again. However, the public's understanding of it, what we're doing, and the debate about this process revolution are only just beginning with Susskind's new book, which is why I'm delighted to review it. And obviously he's had a lot of publicity in the newspapers, which I'm delighted for him about, because they've been positive reviews. And for this new work then, Susskind, who is described as a pioneer of rethinking law for the digital age, confronts head-on the challenges facing our legal system and the potential for technology to bring much needed change as soon as possible, please. This is what a lot of people are asking, and that's really what I think the newer generations coming along are going to expect. He brings, and this is an important thing, he brings his expertise from years of experience leading discussions, often via OUP, on, this is the basic theme, conceiving and delivering online justice, and is rightly described here as charting and developing the public debate which will be, I think, of interest to a very wide range of legal and lay people alike. Against a background, of course, of austerity politics, which we've had, which apparently is now at an end, we'll see about that, and cuts to legal aid, we'll see about that as well, because I don't know what's going to happen. Something will have to happen, but what, I don't know. We're getting to a point where the public case for online courts has too often been framed as a business case by both sides of the debate. It's more than that, great respect. There's a lot of jurisprudence in this. There's a lot of thinking behind how we're going to do our business in the future. Are online courts preserving the public bottom line by finding efficiencies? These are the questions. There are more that he asks in this book, or sacrificing the interests of many to deliver cut-price justice. Well, I'm not in favour of cut-price justice, and nobody else is, but you can see that that is at the heart of quite a lot of people's concerns. Now, what Richard does is he broadens the debate by making the moral case whether online courts are required by principles of justice, and the jurisprudential case, as I call it, which is whether online courts are compatible with our understanding of judicial process and constitutional rights for the delivering of justice online. Now, that is what we've got to grapple with. The judiciary have to do it, the politicians have to do it, and frankly, it's got to be an agreement by all of them. It's no good just saying, oh, well, it's the judges have got to do it, or the Secretary of State for Justice has got to do it. It's got to be much wider than that. It's also got to bring in the users, people like me, who represent parties, and also the clients. Now, the book runs to just over 300 pages. It's an easy read, has an introduction, 28 chapters, and what I thought was a very useful checklist on critical success factors at the back of the book, which isn't actually in an appendix. Then you've got some footnotes which are included together with the reading list or bibliography, and then a short index. I like this book immensely, as I do with all of Richard's work, so thank you very much for doing it, producing it, the hard work you've put into it. The hardback edition was published, I believe, on the 22nd of October 2019. I'm recording this in January 2020. There is the book again. There's the spine, and then you can see the bits on the back there. Let me just open it in the middle. Law and Code, Chapter 15. And we're going to see how the book spans out. Online courts raise a whole host of thorny problems. In this chapter I explore one of the trickiest, which is partly legal, partly technical. My aim is to contribute to an ongoing discussion about the nature of the rules that should underline online courts. I'll just make some little comment on that. We've got rules at the moment, practice directions in the white book and the red book there, which you can probably just see if I move that. We were looking at having basically online versions of those books for us as for practice. That is probably what is going to happen. I don't know, but that's really what the Ministry of Justice, I think, were looking for. But you see, even then, just by that little chapter, you can see there's an awful lot that needs to be discussed. So thank you, Richard, for the production of this book, and I'm sure we can get more from you before too long. In the meantime, let's see where we go, because there's a lot going to happen this decade. Thank you to all. Bye-bye.